We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Well, good evening, and welcome to the 8 o'clock version of the show tonight. This is Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. You're listening to Far Sundays, and tonight we're going to be breaking down Kony 2012 and the meltdown of one Jason Radical Russell. I apologize for the strange time. Look, it's Mercury retrograde, and I'm still trying to work my 8 o'clock time or my Sunday night time into my schedule, which is become a little bit more challenging since I've been working on some work-related stuff on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I see we have some action in the chat room. Gate 7, welcome. Welcome to the show. If you didn't catch Sunday's show, Friday's show, I highly recommend it. It was only an hour long, but I got into some of the symbolism around the Hunger Games and the evolution of the archetypal imagery of women and kind of where all that is going. And I got a lot of compliments on the Friday show. I keep wanting to call it the Sunday show. I got a lot of compliments on the Friday show, and I think it went over pretty well, actually. So go check it out. What I need to do is I need to reformat some of this stuff and put more tags and more headlines and get it on my site. I'm actually working on a pretty long post on the site, which is why it's taking me longer, because there's just so much happening right now. I mean, it is just off the freaking charts what's going on. And part of what tonight is about is to break down this Kony 2012 and invisible children thing. Just say hi to all the people in the chat room. Hello, all. Hold on. Hello, all. There we go. Bang. All right. There we go. So if you're hanging out and you want to, part of the show, or part of the experience of the show, is that it's interactive. So you listen, and hopefully you listen in real time. But I know quite a few people actually listen as a podcast, and that's fine, as long as you theoretically listen. But we have a chat room, and a lot of times I drop links in the chat room. And what I did at the beginning of tonight's show is, for the people in the chat room, you can look at that link I put right at the top, and that is the 30-second video of Jason Russell, who is the head of Invisible Children. So if you want to, you can go ahead. If you haven't seen the clip, I urge you to watch this clip, because it is something to behold. What we're watching is not somebody who is high on drugs, having a break with reality. This is somebody who is having a break with reality, period. And what you're seeing is a multiple personality in action. So remember, this is the guy that is on the front lines in Uganda, been to Uganda, had his, had a friendship with a young Ugandan. We're talking Kony 2012, seen by millions and millions of people on YouTube, going after Joseph Kony in Uganda. And this was the guy that was driving it all. And I've done a fair amount of research, as much as I can in a brief amount of time, on Invisible Children, which is the group that has put Kony 2012 together. And I've made some connections, but certainly there is a great deal more to flesh out. So if you want to, if you're in the chat room, and if you're listening, you could be, right now, you could be in the chat room and you could look at the link to the video. So everybody's in the chat room, check out that video, and what you're going to see is, look, it's not shocking in the sense that we live in America in the 21st century, where the heat on the stove has been turned up gradually over the last 30 years, and the frogs are cooking. So it's not that shocking to see somebody naked losing their shit. We see it. It happens. And yet, if you were to be beamed into the 21st century from the 1950s, that shit would be shocking. I mean, that guy is losing it. Now, that is the relative shock value of it. But the real shock value of that video is that if you look at that video and then you look at the Kony 2012 video, that's a different person. It's a different person. This guy, and I'm not saying that they're two different people. No, I'm talking that there are different people living in that body. Okay? There are two different people living in that body. That what is happening with Jason Russell is his programming is breaking down. Jason Radical Russell. When you watch some of the videos on the Invisible Children site, and by the way, I urge you to watch some of the videos. What I would really urge you to watch is something that the Invisible Children have called the Fourth Estate. There are a number of videos about the Fourth Estate. Now, the Fourth Estate is an indoctrination event for the Invisible Children, and they bring 650 of the quote-unquote best and brightest of their applicants down for a weekend, University of San Diego, and you sleep in a dorm. All you get is a mat. That's wow. Eugenics is the answer. Eugenics is Eric is chimed in. I've got to get out of here. Eugenics is the answer because that's exactly what's going on with Invisible Children. I'm going to talk more about that as the show goes on. But if you go into the Invisible Children's website and you find the Fourth Estate, you'll see a lot of videos that answer questions about the Fourth Estate, prime the Fourth Estate. And the Fourth Estate is an event where it's indoctrination. It is an immersive event where quite frankly kids are programmed, and they're programmed into the doctrinaire of the Invisible Children. And so you ask yourself, well, what is the doctrinaire of the Invisible Children? Well, the doctrinaire of the Invisible Children is something called international justice. So we have two versions of justice. We have social justice and we have international justice. What are they? Well, social justice comes out of the progressive left liberal movement. Social justice can be personified by people like Noam Chomsky, Amy Goodman, who else? Howard, what's his name, the historian who just died. That's the social justice movement. Theoretically, even Barack Obama, vis-a-vis Saul Alinsky, comes out of the social justice movement. Theoretically, international justice, which is what the Invisible Children are calling their movement, is more of a it's more conservative on some level. Certainly, they use religion a lot more than the progressive social justice movement does. So there is a big layer of Christianity, but what kind of Christianity? That's really the question here. What kind of Christianity is driving the international justice movement, and to what end? So the Fourth Estate, if you go to the Invisible Children site, you can see that they have this event called the Fourth Estate. There's lots of Fourth Estate videos, and you'll see two main figures in the Fourth Estate videos. One, Jedediah Jenkins, who is the lawyer and the quote-unquote storyteller, or the person who's in charge of telling the story of Invisible Children throughout all media. And then there's Jason Russell, who is the cinematic or the filmic storyteller. So the two of them are part of the Fourth Estate videos. And they break down, what you can expect at the Fourth Estate events, what clothing you have to wear, how much money you have to bring. These are all very, kind of pertinent details. But then there's also other sort of tidbits that kids get to learn about along the way with the Fourth Estate. There's this one video with the Fourth Estate, which is really interesting. And Jason is talking about, he's answering questions. And so fascinating stuff. So he's addressing the kids, and he says, we get a lot of questions from kids whose parents ask them, well, there's a lot of poverty in this country. Why don't you help people in this country or people closer to home? And, we here at the Invisible Children, we get asked that question too. It's a valid question. That's what he says. And then he moves on. It's one of the most psychopathic things I've ever seen. I mean, it's like, yeah, let's address the question. He goes, it's a valid question. And then, boom, on to the next piece. The one thing that my takeaway with watching a number of these Fourth Estate videos with Jason Radical Russell, his middle name, Radical. By the way, his kid is named Gavin Danger Russell. My one takeaway while I was watching those videos was that this guy was on the edge. I mean, he was on the edge. He's on the edge, and it looks like he's really very close to just going over that edge. Going over that edge. He went over the edge. He went over the edge. And if you watch the video of him losing it, there's no denying that this guy looks like he should go and become a part of America's next designer. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to stereotypically, throw Jason Russell into a bucket, but I mean, clearly that's very it's gay. Okay, it's gay. He looks gay. There's a big fat gay moment with Jason Russell, and I'm not saying that out of any kind of derogatory sense, but he's snapping his fingers and he's having this dialogue about the devil. It's fascinating. And when I saw Kony 2012, and I could only watch about 10 minutes of it because I felt like something really weird is going on in that video. One of the things that really jumped out at me was I had to ask myself, those kids that are supposedly his kids, are they even his kids? I was asking myself when I knew nothing about Invisible Children, which came out of nowhere, by the way. I mean, it may have had a huge amount of views on YouTube, and it has. But who knew about Invisible Children 2 weeks ago? I didn't. If you knew about Invisible Children 2 weeks ago, when you're way out in front of the curve. And look, I know a lot about this stuff. I pride myself in being able to go through and find things and unearth them before they become, before they sprout into our consciousness and awareness. This, I had no clue, but I'm learning and I'm uncovering and I'm trying to figure out kind of what's going on here. And what I'm going to share with you, hopefully, may begin to provide us some answers and some clues. So, but my initial visceral response while I was watching the Invisible Children videos, and again, I'm pretty good at this. I mean, I do other things for a living. I'm an astrologer, I'm a psychic, and I'm an investigator. So my senses and my faculties they're pretty honed. And I looked at Jason Russell and this kid, and I had to ask myself, I said to myself, that's not his kid. It's like, this is not his kid. And I'll tell you why, because he treated the kid in a very unusual way. There was one scene where he was showing like good guy, good man, bad man. The kid's only 5 years old. And he's like dropping all this Kony stuff and, on his kid and I'm like, I'm a parent at 5 years old, I didn't want my kid anywhere near anything that controversial. It's like I wanted my kid's innocence to kind of flourish a little bit. See, I think that's the parental response. Meanwhile, he's like showing this kid here's the bad man. Who's the bad man? Who's the good man? It was just bizarre. And I asked myself, well, what father would treat their kids like that? Maybe a father that doesn't have a kid. That was one man's perception on on an intellectual level, but on a gut level, I really had to ask myself if that was his kid. So then Kony breaks, and people begin to wonder, well, who are the Invisible Children? What are they about? Where do they get their funding from? Now, the response to the Invisible Children was, it was all over CNN. Jason Russell's been on Oprah. I mean, this is not something that has been, this is something that's been fostered now into our consciousness by the media in a very big way. It's like it's time for us to understand and get who the Invisible Children are and what they're doing. So their whole thing is to create, in some ways, flash mobs, but organized flash mobs using social media. And they're going after kids. They're not really going after adults. They're going after kids. You watch the Invisible Children programming, literally and figuratively, they're going after kids. And they're going after a specific generation of kids. They're going after 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids. That's who they're going after. Now, what generation, astrologically, are those kids? They are Pluto and Sagittarius. And what I'm seeing here with the Invisible Children and some of the other programming that's starting to be morphed is that, and I'm writing about this on the site, you can only bleed so much fear out of people. And at some point, you have to approach people and attract them and appeal to some other form of emotional and psychological access and interactivity. So while you can create a bad man in the guise of Joseph Kony, it's not the psychic driver in the program. The psychic driver in the program is empowerment. It is aspiration. It is yes, we can. It is change. It is hope. Do you see where I'm going with this? Right? It is you can stop a war. Why can't people stop war? I mean, it's appealing to a very youthful and in some ways untainted sense of enthusiasm, inspiration, aspiration, and unfettered hope that in a lot of ways young people can have. At the age of 14, 15, 16 years old, I mean, theoretically, you can tap into their sense of idealism because there is a fair amount of idealism at times in the arc of certain generations. Certainly in Pluto and Sagittarius, there's going to be a lot of idealism because they are driven. This is going to be a generation that's driven by ideals, driven by philosophies, and driven by possibility. So why wouldn't you craft a very broad message to scoop as many of them as possible early on in the game? And that, to me, is really what Invisible Children and what we're going to see more of, or maybe not after what's happened in Invisible Children, the messaging towards the youth. And I'm specifically saying that the Pluto in Sagittarius youth. Because the Pluto and Scorpio youth are very different. They're kind of more on the social justice tip. The Pluto and Sagittarius group, the Pluto and Scorpio group, people know that I follow Krishan on Twitter, and Krishan, one of her tweets last week, said, I hope we have a gay revolution this summer in America. Well, that would be, in some ways, very antithetical to this other wave, which is behind them, which is the Pluto and Sagittarius generation. And I could easily see that generation being really triggered and really programmed to be almost fascistic in some ways, and not in alignment with those kinds of ideologies. So I guess what I'm getting at here is we're seeing the fomentation and the early psychological markers and programming of youth, teenagers. The Pluto and Sagittarius generation, they're just now starting to come into their social conscience and social awareness. And Invisible Children was like, well, let me put it this way. Jason Russell was like Peter Pan. And the Pluto and Sag kids were like Wendy and John. Now, I guess you'll get some of the younger Pluto and Scorpio kids, the 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Maybe they're a part of that. Maybe the 20-year-olds. I'm guessing younger. At least the pictures I've seen, younger. So Jason Russell was like a Peter Pan. And putting together a children's crusade with Wendy and Johns. Now, I haven't even talked about the fact that Charles Kony is probably dead, or Joseph Kony is probably dead. He is probably dead. I've seen videos of Ugandans who claim that he is dead, and he has been dead for 4 years. And at the most, he might have 300 followers, at the most. Now, is that a reason to create a social movement? To go after it? Again, I'm telling you, I've seen videos with Ugandans claiming the guy is dead. And not stuffy, administrative Ugandans, young people. So there's a real disconnect here in the story between Invisible Children and this video that they've created. A huge disconnect. Now, did that lead to Jason Russell's breakdown? Did he suddenly find out that Joseph Kony was a phony? That he was dead, and that it was all a big scam? Is that what happened to him? Is that what led to his psychological break? No, I don't think so. Because I think that Jason Russell had been programmed to begin with. T-Power, who listens to the show, responded to one of my tweets, and she told me that Russell is one of the main names of the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati that Fritz Springmeier talks about in his book. Russell is a big name. So there we go. Jason Radical Russell. His surname is in Fritz Springmeier's book. I'm telling you, you watch that video, that is a different person. A different person. We're watching the breakdown of his programming right there before our eyes. So what else is going on with invisible children? Who are these people? Where do they get their money from? That is really the big question. Who funds them? Okay, so I went onto their website and I looked around a little bit, and they've got, you can go there, you can look at about, there's all the members of their team, and they're all pretty much, if they're from America, they're white. If they're from Africa, they're black. But they all look really good. They all look fresh scrubbed and clean and attractive. So I started clicking on some of the various profiles. And I found that there was this one young woman named Mallory Tull. And I popped on her profile. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she had worked for two other organizations prior to coming to the Invisible Children. One was American Bible Services, and then the other was something called Geneva Global. And I'm going to talk about Geneva Global in a second. But the other thing that was really interesting about Mallory Tull is that she did it in a movie. She did voiceover work. She was from Maryland. Maryland, of course, is an interesting place to be based on what's around that area. Anyway, I found her to be kind of almost like a skeleton key. Like by dropping in on Mallory Tull, I was able to trace two very, I think, salient connections to invisible children. The American Bible Services, they're the people that put the Bibles in all the hotel rooms. And they give Bibles to, the Army. They are the de facto Bible manufacturers. They pump out Bibles. They pump out the King James Version of the Bible, the Gideon Bible. That's them. So where do they get their money from? I couldn't find out. But Geneva Global is interesting. And I went to their website. And I'm going to put this link up in the chat room right now, so you guys can go there and you can check it out. There we go. There's Geneva Global, if you feel like looking at it. Geneva Global is pretty interesting in some ways, but not in ways you think that I would think it's interesting. Well, maybe, I don't know. Here, I'm going to put this in here. This is, by the way, let's do this. Let's put Mallory Tull's. The Invisible Children have all these little programs. They're working on something now called, let's see, Break the Silence, and it's an event called 25, and it's going to happen on April 25th. And it's another one of these events that they have. And here's Mallory Tull. She does not look very happy in that little picture there. She's fundraising. And what's really interesting is, on one side, you've got the kid with the rifle on this page. And the other side, you've got the girl, again, a profile, raising her finger up to her mouth and doing the finger across the lips, is just shh, don't tell the secret, our lips are sealed, right? All right, so let's talk about Geneva Global here. Let me see if I can find them. Here we go. So Geneva Global is based out of Philadelphia. And they are it's kind of fascinating. They have the look and feel of an NGO, which is what Invisible Children are, but they're not an NGO. They are a 501c, which means they're a nonprofit, but that doesn't mean you can't profit from them. They are engaged in something called performance philanthropy. Performance philanthropy. Now, I'm just guessing that because of Geneva Global's action in Africa, and you go to their website, you'll see that they're very involved in Africa, that they have a vested interest in invisible children. And you look at somebody like Mallory Tall, who leaps from Geneva Global to Invisible Children, that I would say more than likely is a very strong leak. So what is performance philanthropy? Okay. First of all, Geneva Global is like a fund. They're like a hedge fund, okay? But they're a nonprofit hedge fund. That's what they are. And the least amount that you can donate to Geneva Global is donate is $25,000. $25,000. So what does that do? Well, that allows you to target where your donation goes. Now, what you get out of that, I have no clue. Do you get some form of, I don't know, do you get some stake in some new business that emerges through this and then you make money off of it? What's really going on here? What is the money doing? Where is it going? How do you, it's a fascinating concept, performance philanthropy. Like they go in, here, let's look at the FAQs with Geneva Global. I'll read this. Can you briefly describe what Geneva Global does? Geneva Global helps donors make the most of their international giving and understand the measurable difference that giving makes in people's lives. Okay, we like that, right? We work with all kinds of donors, individuals, foundations, corporations, even government agencies interested in maximizing the result of their philanthropy. We seek to take the complexity and concerns out of international giving through our services, making it easy and effective. We also work with social development investors to assess the social impacts and, where appropriate, the environmental impacts, not always more appropriate though, of their initiatives and investments. Through our funds, we assist donors who give from $5,000 to millions of dollars annually, provide independent assessment and evaluation of high-impact granting opportunities. What the hell does that mean? A high-impact granting opportunity. What is the payoff for a high-impact granting opportunity? And we provide world-class research and consulting services to assist both donors and social development investors. Now, obviously, you're going to be able to write this off on your taxes, but there's something else going on here. We've been helping our clients make the most of their international giving since 1999. In the past decade, we've helped more than 70 clients place more than $100 million in grants in more than 1,650 projects in more than 100 countries. With our assistance, grants placed by our clients have impacted more than 16 million lives. How large is Geneva Global? Geneva Global has registered offices in the UK, Ethiopia, Côte d'Ivoire, and is headquartered in suburban Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In addition, we regularly work with field consultants around the world. We also maintain a network of over 450 community leaders, development experts, and consultants, and over 1,000 previously qualified local charitable organizations, blah, 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 blah. How is GGI different from other giving options? And why should I choose GGI to handle my donation? We offer, this is the key, a unique combination of excellent client service, high-impact granting opportunities, and high-quality independent analysis and evaluation. Rather than viewing your philanthropy as a donation, we see it as an investment that transforms lives and communities in the world's hardest places. If you want your giving to make the greatest possible difference, to know the measurable difference it makes, to see more of every dollar you invest to go to those in need, then we provide your best option for international giving. Is GGI a fundraising organization for overseas charities? We are not a fundraising organization. In fact, one of the things that differentiates Geneva Global from other options you have for international giving is that we provide independent, objective analysis of potential giving opportunities. Now, what does that mean? Really? Here it comes. This is the punchline. Think of us as the philanthropic equivalent of an investment banking service. We identify and recommend to our clients only the best-in-class international charitable organizations. Because we are independent, because our services are paid for by our clients, we are not beholden to the local charitable organizations we bring to our clients' attention. Therefore, we are able to recommend organizations according to merit alone and report on the progress of programs as an independent evaluator. What kind of reporting can I expect? We believe that clients should know how their contributions are used and the difference their giving makes. And while reporting is important, we believe our clients deserve so much more. Distinctive investment quality research and analysis that enables each fund to be comprised of the carefully selected best-in-class programs, ongoing project monitoring, and active portfolio management to ensure that each contribution to a fund achieves maximum impact, regular reporting on fund progress, direct connection to the people who's... There's a lot going on here. You get a gift receipt for your tax-deductible donation, but it says, is Geneva Global a nonprofit organization? Geneva Global is not a nonprofit. It is for-profit. We believe the disciplines of the for-profit marketplace should be applied to charitable giving in order to channel more philanthropic capital to the most effective organizations and their projects. Donors should be made aware of the best local charitable organizations. So they are a nonprofit, but they do have a 501c, which is interesting. So anyway, what is social return on investment? Social return on investment, or SROI, is a way of helping a donor understand the measurable impact his or her giving has made. We demonstrate specific, measurable. So they're in the business of making money. They're in the business of making money. And theoretically, people that donate to them are also in the business of making money as well. That's what it's about. So it's an interesting hybrid and a very strange combination. And I'm guessing a lot of, and again, I'm guessing that a fair amount of the funding for Invisible Children come from Geneva Global. That's my sense. If you go onto Invisible Children's website and look at their financials, it shows where their funding comes from. It does not show you, it shows where they get their funding from or what sectors. Like they sell merch and they sell all this other stuff, DVDs, but they don't, when it comes to the donation part, they don't break that down. So potentially, Geneva Global is similar to a Tides Foundation, but for for whatever they are, the Christian right? I don't know. I don't know who these people are. My guess is that, to me, I mean, it sounds very Freemasonic. That's my feeling. I mean, if you look at Geneva Global, what's the first thing you see before the Geneva Global? You see the G, and what is in the center of the compass and square for the Freemasons? You see the G. Right? That's a big part is the G. It's interesting that Geneva Global isn't even it's not even based out of Geneva. Why couldn't they call it Philadelphia Global or London Global? They had to have the G in there. So this is another kind of adjunct and aspect of this invisible children wave. Something is it's just not right. The other thing too with the invisible children, if you look at their logo, if you look at the logo for the Fourth Estate, you will see the inverted pyramid. I mean, so the symbol theoretically of the inverted pyramid, and I've talked about it to some extent with how it's the symbol of the feminine. It is water. It is water, and it is the feminine principle of the masculine version of the pyramid, which is Earth, but it's flipped. There's also kind of a social order theoretically to it, like the bottom is on top, right? Like the proletariats, which by the way is the proletariats are another name or label for the Fourth Estate. The proletariats are on top, and that the ruling elite are down at the bottom. That's another symbol for the inverted pyramid. But it's also a symbol for population control and depopulation. Frank Sarson pointed this out about a week ago when we were talking about the Invisible Children movie. Right at the beginning of the movie, you see their symbol. It's that flashing inverted pyramid. Now, if you go to some of the earlier and maybe the international versions of Planned Parenthood, you can find that inverted pyramid. If you go to the Southern Poverty Law Center, you can see, quote unquote, the scales of justice, but in the center of the scales of justice, you'll also see the inverted pyramid. So the inverted pyramid is in some ways about depopulation and population control. Is this what they're doing in Africa? I don't know. Not true. But it's interesting, and it certainly is an interesting symbol. One of the other things that's fascinating about the Fourth Estate, and as it relates to invisible children, is that IC in astrology also stands for Imimcelli, or Imimcelli, which is the fourth house, or the beginning of the fourth house, aka the Fourth Estate. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about invisible children, Geneva Global, and what appears to be, or was trending to be, a new movement to capture the attention of a group of children or people in general, and to mobilize them around the ideas of philanthropy and using tools like, quote unquote, Christianity, faith, and even democracy to go in and change cultures. One of the big proponents of this has been sort of the advisory branch of the Obama administration. Susan Rice has been pushing this, and what's the other power? I forget her first name. She actually has written books about using democracy to stem tyranny and terrorism around the world, which was what they used as a kind of a metric or a yardstick to go in and force their regime change on Libya. But there's an ideological acclamation and an ideological insertion of the program for people to be able to accept these things on a global level. And I believe that Kony 2012 was supposed to be the flaming arrow into the hearts and minds of the people to get behind this and to kickstart this awareness. Again, keep in mind, This is all coming just as we're about to witness the emergence of the Hunger Games, which is yet another attempt to capture the consciousness and the signal of this Pluto and Sagittarius generation. So instead of the flaming arrow shot into our awareness and our psyches, what we got is the flaming director, Jason Russell, breaking down on the Ides of March, by the way, during his 33rd birthday. Or no, his 33rd year, not his 33rd. I don't know when his birthday is. And now Kony 2012 and Invisible Children are being rocked. They're being rocked. If you put money behind this in order to mobilize people and to create kind of a new sort of underclass of what I would call secularly inspired social activism, you've got to be rethinking this strategy. NGOs, by the way, on the right and the left, are funded by very, very rich people. Now, like for instance, when we go to Occupy Wall Street, right? Where does some of Occupy Wall Street's money come from? Well, it comes from Adbusters, theoretically. Adbusters was really big and still is behind Occupy Wall Street. Well, who funds Adbusters? Well, it's George Soros through the Tides Foundation. And Soros funds other groups, other NGOs. This is how these things get done, people. The Koch brothers do the same thing. You've got somebody like Philip Anschutz, who is a really strong, super strong Presbyterian evangelical. He might have his fingers in this. And a lot of times these people, their faith or their religious affiliation, they're just covers. They can be covers. Is this really kind of morphing into the sort of the illuminated one world feel-goodism that would theoretically, get people singing Kumbaya and it's a small world after all? I mean, what is driving these things? Who are driving these things? I don't necessarily believe it's all purely out of the goodness of their hearts and wanting to. I could be wrong, but I'm not getting that. I'm getting agenda here. I'm getting agenda. And I don't think that this was supposed to happen to not only Kony 2012, nor Jason Radical Russell. The other thing I found, which was really interesting around Invisible Children, is that they're connected to an organization called The Just Life. And again, I found this through Mallory Tull. The Just Life is a very Christian website, and they're the ones that I believe spawned Invisible Children. And the first film that Jason Russell did was something called Rough Cut. And that was kind of the film that galvanized all these people. And The Just Life is very ecumenical and very evangelical. And Invisible Children isn't. It's kind of like they dropped a lot of the iconographic trappings, and they went for this sort of watered down version of evangelical faith and zeal, and gave it kind of this, feel good, uplifted, positive, make a change in the world, secular, positive spiritualism. Then what happens is you get the people coming in from The Just Life, and then they begin to, kind of work and morph with these kids from Invisible Children. So it's a feeder group. And they're not necessarily being completely transparent. When I was a kid, I remember clearly going to some of these events. I went to one event as a kid, and it was in high school. And there were school buses, and it was a Christian evangelical event. And there were a lot of kids from my school that went. Now, I didn't really know at the time that it was a Christian evangelical event. I was just there to have fun, right, and play games and goof off and meet girls. That's kind of why I went. You know, it's the 1970s. I'm 15 years old. You don't have a car. And just trying to, you know, kind of figure the game out. So I went. And I'm playing the games, all great. And then, of course, at the end, there's the talk, the preach. At that point, I was like, just get me out of here, please. Invisible Children is kind of a modern-day version of that. And again, who's behind it? That's really the big question here. Whoever's behind it, they can't be pleased with what's happened, and certainly they hit the self-destruct button on Jason Radical Russell. That much is pretty darn clear, if you ask me. All right, there's more, and there will be more. It will be on my website. I seem to be working in concert now with the show and the website and trying to break these things down. Where am I in the show? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a little bit of music and take a break. And let me just see where we are. I'll play some music, take a break, come back. I'm only doing 90 minutes tonight, by the way. And I have 38 minutes left. So let me play some music and come and hang out in the chat room for a little bit. And then we'll talk. I'll talk some more. And then we'll kind of wrap this thing up a little bit. What do I want to play? How about some music from the lovely and talented Erica Maringer? Let's play this, and we'll come back in 4 minutes and 39 seconds, and we'll chat some more, shall we? That was Erica Maringer. And you can actually find more of her material on her website, which is now called mermuse.com. And Erica does a lot of the graphics for my site, and she does a lot of the video stuff for me. So if you have any graphic needs, check her out. She's very good and works very quickly, and I highly recommend her. So there we go. I'm trying to find my my piece on, let's see, what is it? Angelina Jolie from my website. Let me see if I can find it. We're talking about Angelina Jolie in the chat room, and I did a big piece on her, a couple of them actually. And let's see, here we go. I did 3 pieces on her. I'm going to put them in the chat. See, now if you're in the chat room, you could go and click on these. So I'm going to put these in the chat room, and I wish the chats you could save these. Here we go. There's one piece. Let's see, and I get into the charts too, by the way, of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And let's see, there's another piece right here. And I could do a whole show on Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt and kind of their role, quote unquote, role in things. There's 2. And lastly, there's 3. If you want to see, I think that the film to really capture the essence of Angelina Jolie. It's a film called The Good Shepherd, and it's with Matt Damon, and I get into that quite a bit on the website in one of the pieces. Maybe I should read that. I don't know. I don't know if people like hearing me read, but it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating how she ties into that movie, both in the film and also out of the film. Let me see if I can just find it here. It's in the second piece, which is Angelina Jolie, Universal Mother, Bloodline Goddess, Fertility Queen for the New Age. If you've seen the movie, okay, so let me break this out. Here we go. I'll read this. In The Good Shepherd, Jolie plays the long-suffering wife of Edward Wilson. That's Matt Damon's character, a CIA lifer who graduated from Army intelligence to the first iteration of the CIA at the end of World War II. She meets Wilson, Damon, at a Skull and Bonesman retreat. This is part of the movie, but again, it's probably culled from real-life stories. Wilson is Skull and Bones, as was his father. Jolie's character is the sister of Wilson's Skull and Bones brother, and she goes by the name of Clover. That's her name in the movie, Clover, her nickname, right? Let's stop the film right here for a second. Not just anyone gets invited to Skull and Bones. It's a highly selective group that is usually designated by bloodline. Skull and Bones members include both G.W. Bush and John Kerry, who conveniently opposed one another during the 2004 election when all hell broke loose in Ohio around the voter rolls. And Diebold machines started flipping like slot machines across the country. John Kerry conveniently stepped back in defeat, not challenging the veracity of the election results for a single moment. Without dissent, no debate about voting or regularity could take place. I suppose membership might have its privileges. So then it got into the whole connection between the bloodlines and Bush and Kerry. Some more about Jolie. So Jolie's character is born into a bloodline, as was Damon's character. Ironically, her nickname Clover is derived from the name Clovis, who happens to be the son of Childeric, who was the son of Meravi. Meravi was said to have 2 fathers, one human the other a sea beast, or a bestia neptunus, according to the historian Priscus. Another name for the sea beast was the quinatar, or sea bull, which is closely related to the sea goat, or its modern version as Capricorn. Clovis united France under one faith, Christianity. He did this because his wife was a Roman Christian, but he also realized that a monotheistic faith made it easier to rule a better people. So in the movie, she's being connected through the name Clover to Clovis. And the Merovingi, the son of Merovingi, well, Merovingi is where we get the name, believe it or not, Merovingian. Okay? Jolie is related to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Her name is, she's part of the Guyon, G-U-Y-O-N bloodline, which comes from France to Canada. Also related to Jolie are Madonna, Shania Twain, Alanis Morissette, and Celine Dion. Clinton Rodham is rumored to also be descended from the kings of Navarre, but this has never been proven. So the kings of Navarre are from that area of France. It's very close to Spain. They're kind of in that interesting sort of Basque French area, which again would put it very close to the realm of the Merovingian. And the Basque people, by the way, are theoretically, supposedly, the closest to the Atlanteans in the modern world. So let's see, Brad Pitt. Jolie's baby daddy, Brad Pitt, is related to Barack Obama. And Obama's bloodline runs through William, the Lion King of Scotland, and Henry II. This is what we're led to believe, of course. He and Pitt are also related to Cheney, Bush, Carter, and Roosevelt. Bush's lineage should be traced back to Vlad the Impaler, theoretically, Caesar, and into the dynasties of Egypt. This is what they would like us to think. I think there's probably a good chance, but I think we need to question just about everything. So Brad, through his lineage, is related to the Merovingian bloodline. Together, he and Jolie form a blue-blooded power couple. As I've attempted to show in previous posts, the bloodline membership allows, one, wide access to a number of select organizations. The Rockefellers, one of 13 blue bloodline families, founded the Council on Foreign Relations, an organization that Jolie is now a member of. So then I get into the chart activity of Pitt and Jolie. I break down, his Jupiter on her Aries, and there's a lot of astrological stuff that gets broken down in these posts. Anyway, I put them up in the chat room, and you can look at them. So there we go. Just answering a question about Angeline and Jolie's. There we go. Okay. Is there anything else I want to bring to the table tonight? I guess what I want to share with you before I go into kind of a personal place is this has been a really interesting week. Really, really interesting. And let's just look back on what's happened this week and try to get some perspective. Kony 2012 tries to fly, falls, fail, F-A-I-L, fail. Its visionary, founder, disgraced. Not only disgraced, just utterly broken down. And people are getting so hip now. They're seeing this programming thing happening before our very eyes. And people are able to, just nail it. Yeah, that's what's happening. Not everybody, but a lot of people are. So that's happened. Greg Smith, the defector from Goldman Sachs, who sent his letter to the New York Times and declared that he essentially couldn't handle it anymore, that his conscience couldn't bear the weight of literally not caring and stealing other people's money. Somebody had a moment of conscience and defected. That's a big deal. That happened this week. And then, of course, we saw, unfortunately, the staff sergeant in Afghanistan. I believe his last name is it Bates or Blake? I think it's Bates. Go nuts and kill 16 people, mostly women and children. Now that's the picture they're painting of him as going nuts. Why is it when somebody on the side of, say, the United States or England or Israel, why is it when they do something and go off, they're insane, they're nuts, they've lost grip with reality, but when somebody else does it, they're a terrorist? It's an interesting. It's an interesting conundrum. But the fact of the matter is that it's becoming more transparent. Now I'm going to read you something else here before I sign off tonight. This is another really mind-blowing, and I mean a mind-blowing confession. This is from the website, The Economic Collapse. And this is another whistleblower. This is a guy that is still employed, and he works for J.P. Morgan. Now, he originally posted this over at the securities trading website. He posted this at the CFTC. The CFTC is the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. This guy posted this on this website, okay? And they took it down. So I'm going to read this, and then I'll transition to something else, and we'll sign off here for tonight. The crazy things that one whistleblower says are happening in J.P. Morgan will blow your mind. Now, keep in mind, we just had Greg Smith have his moment of conscience to talk about what's happened at the culture of Goldman Sachs. Rampant silver manipulation, rampant gold manipulation, rampant LIBOR manipulation, hiding MF Global client assets. These are all happening at J.P. Morgan, according to an open letter reportedly written by an anonymous employee of the firm. The whistleblower also warns of a cascading credit event being triggered by derivatives related to the Greek government debt. Unlike Greg Smith at Goldman Sachs, this whistleblower has chosen to remain anonymous for now. According to the letter, the whistleblower is still an employee, of J.P. Morgan, and has not resigned. But that does make it much more difficult to confirm what he is saying. With Greg Smith, we know exactly who he is and what he was doing at Goldman. As far as this anonymous whistleblower is concerned, all we have is this letter. So we must take it with a grain of salt. However, the information in this letter does agree with what whistleblowers such as Andrew Maguire have said in the past about silver manipulation by J.P. Morgan. And this letter does mention Greg Smith's resignation from Goldman, so we know that it must have been written in the past few days. Hopefully, this letter will cause authorities to take a much closer look at the crazy things that are going on over at J.P. Morgan and other big Wall Street banks. The anonymous letter was addressed to the CFTC, but unfortunately, it looks like the CFTC has already chosen to ignore it. The original letter from this anonymous whistleblower has already been taken down from the CFTC website. So here we go. Here's the letter. Dear CFTC staff, hello, I'm a current J.P. Morgan Chase employee. This is an open letter to all commissioners and regulators. I'm emailing you today because I know of insider information that would be damning at best for J.P. Morgan Chase. I've decided to play the role of whistleblower because I no longer have faith and belief that we are doing for society is bringing value to people. I am now under the opinion that we are actually putting hardworking Americans unaware of what lies ahead at extreme market risk. This risk is unnecessary and will lead to wide-scale market collapse if not handled properly. With the release of Mr. Smith's open letter to Goldman, I too would like to set the record straight for JPM as well. I have seen the disruptive behavior of superiors and no longer can say that I look up to employees at the ED, MD level here at JPM, so executive director, management director level at JPM. Their smug exuberance and arrogance permeates the air just as pungently as rotting vegetables. They all know too well of the backdoor crony connections they share intimately with elected officials and with other institutions. It is apparent in everything they do, from the meager attempts to manipulate LIBOR, therefore controlling how almost all derivatives are priced, to the inherent and fraudulent commodities manipulation, They too may have one day stood for something in the past in the client-employee relationship. Does anyone in today's market really care about the protection of their clients? From the ruthless and scandalous treatment of MF Global client assets to the excessive bonuses paid by companies with burgeoning liabilities. Yes, we at JP Morgan that are in the know are fearful of a cascading credit event being triggered in Greece as they have hidden derivatives in excess of $1 trillion US. So they've used Greece to stash all this stuff, which is why Greece is hemorrhaging and dying of economic cancer. We at JP Morgan own enough of these through counterparty risk and outright prop trading that our entire IBEDG space could be annihilated within a few short days. The last 10 years has been marked by inflection point after inflection point, with the most notable coming in 2008 after the acquisition of Bear. I wish to remain anonymous as of now, as fear of termination mounts from what I'm about to reveal. Robert Gottlieb is not my real name. However, he is a trader that is involved in a lawsuit for manipulative trading while working with JP Morgan Chase. He was acquired during our Bear Stearns acquisition and is known to be the notorious person shorting in the silver future market from his trading space, along with Blythe Masters, his IB Global boss. However, with that said, we are manipulating the silver futures market and playing a smaller but still massively manipulative role in manipulating the gold futures market. We have a little over 25%, give or take a percentage, position in the short market for silver futures, and by your definition, this denotes a larger position than for speculative purposes or for hedging, and is beyond the line of manipulation. On a side note, I do not work exactly with accounts that would have been directly impacted by the MF Global fiasco, but I've heard through other colleagues that we have an involvement in the hiding of client assets from MF Global. MF Global, of course, is the company that was headed by Dave Corzine, who used to be the head of Goldman Sachs, became governor of New Jersey, left that, went back into the commodities and hedge fund marketplace, took MF Global, and essentially made a huge trade on banks and the economy in Europe, thinking it would go up when it went down, and they lost pretty much everything. And what they didn't lose, they claimed to have lost, and now you can't find a damn thing. If you had money in MF Global, you're basically shit out of luck, and you're barking up the same barren, fruitless tree that the Bernie Madoff people are barking up now. This is another fraudulent effort on our part and constitutes theft. I urge you to forward that part of the investigation to the respective authorities. There's something else that you may find strange. During month-end December, we were all told by our managers that this was going to be a dismal year in terms of earnings and that we should not expect any bonuses or pay raises. Then come mid-late January, it is made known that everyone received a pay raise and or a bonus, which is interesting because just a few weeks ago, we were told that this was not likely and expected to be paid nothing in addition to base salary. January is right around the time we started increasing our short positions quite significantly again, around the time, quite something this most recent crash in gold and silver during Bernanke's speech on February 29th is of notable importance as we, along with 4 other major institutions, orchestrated the violent $100 drop and subsequent drops in silver. As regulators of the free people of this country, I ask you to uphold the most important job in the world right now. That job is judge and overseer of all that is justice in the most sensitive commodity markets. There are many middle-income people that invest in the physical assets of silver and gold, as well as mining stocks that are being financially impacted in a negative way because our unscrupulous shorts in the precious metals commodity sector. If you read the COT with intent, you will find that commercials, even though we have no business in the commercial sector, which should be reserved for companies that truly produce the metal, are net short by a long shot in not only silver but gold. It is rather surprising that what should be well-known liabilities on our balance sheet have not erupted into wider scale scrutinization. I call all honest and courageous JP Morgan employees to step up and fight the cronyism in wide-scale manipulation by reporting the truth. We are only helping reality come to light, therefore allowing a real valuation of our banking industry, which will give investors a chance to properly adjust without being totally wiped out. I'll be contacting a lawyer shortly about this matter, as I believe no other whistleblower at J.P. Morgan has come forward yet. Our deepest secrets lie within the hands of honest employees and can be revealed through honest regulators that are willing to take a look inside of one of America's best-kept secrets. Please do not allow this to turn into another Enron. Kind regards, the first whistleblower of many. So what's happening here, if you take this letter on face value, is that people cannot hold this anymore. We can't hold the illusion anymore. We can't do it. People, the social conscience can't handle it anymore. It's the gravity of what's taking place is starting to break down people's ability to look the other way or justify or act out of some interest that they deem to be beneficial to themselves or to other people in the long run. Can't handle it anymore. It's not happening. It's not happening. We're going to see more and more and more of this. Greg Smith, this whistleblower, Jason Russell breaking down. This is the wave, people. It's happening now. And what happens when things like this occur is that more and more measures of control try to be, enacted, forced, jammed into place. And then what happens is that in turn triggers people more, and people begin to figure out that this is something that they just can't handle internally. I guess what I'm saying is that the souls of people are starting to emerge into their day-to-day life in ways that are meaningful. And when I say soul, the soul is something that exists out of time, out of this realm of time and space, and connects us to something pretty profound. And the soul, the collective soul, the individual soul, is breathing through the affairs of humanity. And we're going to see more and more and more of this. That's what's taking place. And people are going to be able to step back and make their own determinations and their own decisions about where they are in the grand scheme of things. So there you go. For me personally, the only thing I can tell you from my perch, from where I sit, and from what I'm experiencing, is that my life is changing, and is changing in a really profound, interesting, and humbling kind of way, and in an interesting kind of way, very interesting kind of way. Yesterday I went to Starbucks because I needed to get out of my house, and I sat down, and there was a woman at this table, and she was sitting down at the table, and I don't know, I made some small talk with her, and the next thing I know, let me see how much time I got left here. Got 9 minutes left. The next thing I know, we're talking. She was Asian. We're talking, and she wants to know what I do, and I tell her kind of what I do. When people ask what I do, it's kind of hard to tell them what I do. I've got a website. I got a radio show, blah, blah, blah. And she starts telling me about her life. She starts telling me that her parents died very recently. Her life partner died pretty recently, and she was going through grief, or trying to get to grief. Now, I'm a stranger. She doesn't know me from Adam. She's telling me this. And the next thing I know, we're talking about her sister, the problem she has with her sister. And she was on her way to this kind of Buddhist kind of workshop to live with more compassion. And, by the time she left the table, something had fundamentally changed between her and me. And she was a different person when she left Starbucks. I could see it on her face. She was smiling. she kind of realized that there was a place that she could get to because really, quite honestly, she was guilty. She was guilty that she didn't take the time to be with her parents more. She didn't take the time to be with her life partner more and to really focus on what they brought to her life. She was living with guilt, and she was trying to break through her guilt and to get to her grief. And she was different. Well, I was different too after she left. It wasn't just, but there's something going on here. There's some layer of gnosis, intelligence that is being activated through our affairs as humans. But there is a nodal network of consciousness right now that you're a part of just by listening to this. And you, in turn, will go into your life, wherever that leads you, sleep, dream, work tomorrow. You will bring this moment into your day and into your life. And somehow, you will interact and encounter other people, and they in turn are going to be changed. It's just the way it is now. You can't stop it. I'm not going to stop it. Why would I want to stop it? These are called dissipative structures. I talked about it on my website. It's physics. It's actually based on biochemical, quantum physical theory. Fascinating stuff. And so we're influencing one another on very subtle realms, and it's happening. It's happening now. We can't quantify it, but it's happening. And it's happening when, it's like chaos theory, really. Think about this. Let's say it all breaks down to, I have a conversation with a woman in Starbucks who is mourning the loss of her father, mother, and lover. The conversation lasts 15 or 20 minutes, but who knows where that goes and how that impacts somebody else. And maybe, just maybe, the chain reaction of that event winds up somewhere in a place like Washington, D.C., or Wall Street, or maybe even Beijing. And now somebody else is consciously interacting with another person because of the result of this. We don't know. We don't know how this affects people. That's the beauty of it in some ways. This is what we call faith. Faith in knowing that what you do does have an impact. And it does, trust me. And the challenge with it is to just stay open to the whole process, not take it too seriously or be too self-important about it. And I'm clear that we're on the cusp of something pretty interesting. And that doesn't mean that it's all going to change overnight and we're all going to wake up in the morning, singing Kumbaya and farting rainbows. It's not going to happen, not like that, but trust me, something is taking place in a very interesting way. All right, tomorrow I'm going to be back doing this again. I've had a hard time getting guests for this Sunday night show. I had one guest last Sunday night ditch me, said I was too into the occult. Another guest who I was trying to line up who, very intense, powerful researcher, but he told me some very heavy things about, not wanting to be on the air, maybe a Q&A. So I've had two people one say flat out, I'll do something. One just bailed on me. The other said, we'll do something else. So I've had some challenges on the Sunday night tip. But we'll get it right. I promise. We'll get some guests on here. It won't just be me yammering away. But it's fascinating how this guy thought I was like totally into the occult. I have friends, who are, very liberal, progressive, and spiritual, and they think that I'm judgmental, conservative, and fascist. Well, I'm oversimplifying it, okay? But certainly they don't agree with my ideas. It's a very strange place to be, very strange place. But at the very least, it's interesting. All right, I'll be back tomorrow, and who knows where we're going to go tomorrow. But thank you for everybody that hung in there and stayed in the chat room and listened. You're all, deeply appreciated in my book, and thrilled to be able to do this and actually have somebody to listen to what I talk about. So anyway, thanks again. Thank you to Erica for sort of manning or womaning or personing the chat room tonight, and Gate 7, Mustang Sally, and everybody else that's in there. I'll be back tomorrow. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to step what's possible. It's Robert Phoenix. Have a great week.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.